Good morning, New York Met baseball fans. How we doing? Beautiful weather in the New York area if you're here. Yes, it's a Monday, but it's a beautiful, beautiful day weather-wise. Supposed to go up to 80 here. So it's warming up. But you know what? We know what's not warming up. It's our beloved Metropolitans. Now, I got some good news on the Mets front for you. The season will soon be over. One more week possible of carnage, the carnage we've experienced all month in September, the kind of slow death we've experienced since Jacob deGrom went on the DL or IL. Politically correct, it's now the injured list. It's not the disabled list, so I beg your pardon on that. But the season will be coming to an end. It's going to be interesting playing the Marlins. We got one of those infamous 2 7-inning game doubleheaders tomorrow. Then 2 more games with the Marlins. And then we go to Atlanta to finish out the season. I'm not sure if those games with the Braves are going to be meaningful or not. Depends on what happens with the Phillies and the Braves the next couple of days. But nonetheless, enjoy the Met baseball as it comes down to its final days. Now, I've been doing some deep thinking, and this could very well be one of the biggest busts of all time in Met history. We were in first place for almost, 100 days? I don't know the exact number. And now we're 10 games under 500. Is that even possible? I mean, this has been one big nightmare. The Mets have totally collapsed, and I don't even know if the future looks as bright as it did last year when we didn't make the playoffs. So there's going to be some drastic changes coming around, I think. I don't think Steve Cohen's going to sit by idly. And unfortunately, it may start with management. Luis Rojas may be gone. I think Sandy Alderson will remain with the organization, step aside and be in the role he was in, as just as like consultant and whatever his title was before he got thrown into the heat with all the mess during the offseason with the general managership, I should say. But there's going to be a lot of decisions to be made, lots. Now, one of the things that really needs to be discussed is the pitching and the pitching coaching of the New York Mets. A lot of guys getting hurt. Are the mechanics okay? And one of the puzzling things with me is Carlos Carrasco. Again, the first inning is just so frustrating. It's been a frustrating first season with the Mets for Carlos. Basically, he didn't get out of the chute till the season began. When did he come? In August, I think, was the first time he came back. So he was supposed to be coming back May, June, July, kept getting pushed back. So it was one big lingering delay for Carlos Carrasco. And when he came back, he didn't really impress the way he should have. Now we can blame it on rust. I mean, you're out that long, and last year was only a 60-game season. So hopefully he'll be back next year. And I still say he's a live arm, and it's just one of those things this year with Carlos. But with the hamstring healed, I just don't get how his first inning woes continue to be an enigma to him and the Mets. And it's just one of the pieces of the puzzle to this lost season. Now, on Sunday, he surrendered a 2-run homer to Willy Adames. And you talk about a team turning around with a trade. I think the Braves were a couple games under 500 when Willy Adames was on, when they traded for Willy Adames. I think they're playing almost like, correct me if I'm wrong, they're like 72-38 or something since they got Willy Adames. It's been unbelievable. Coincidence? I think not. But the Brewers were able to make some big offseason acquisitions for sure. I mean, during the season, acquisitions that really inspired this ball club, Escobar, Adames. So hats off to David Stearns. And David Stearns was the guy we wanted as GM, but the Brewers just wouldn't let us talk to him. And we can see why, can't we? But getting back to Carrasco, on Sunday, he surrendered a 2-run homer to Willy Adames in the first. And the Mets never rebounded an 8-4 loss to the Brewers at what they now call American Family Field. It's going to take me a while. I still call it Miller Park. Now, the loss guaranteed the Mets of their second straight losing season under manager Luis Rojas in 4th in 5 years. Now, Carrasco, who has 1 start remaining, saw his first inning ERA, believe it or not, rise. Can you believe it? It rose to 14.73 with Adames' blast. The Brewers scored 3 additional runs against Carrasco in the second inning, and he finished with 2 straight scoreless frames. Now, a couple of walks. It was the changeup, and Carrasco was trying to get a ground ball to strike them out, but he went 2 down in the zone, and he was just trying to figure out where he could throw it. It probably was a learning experience for Carrasco, but he really has to get his act together. There's no excuse for pitching game after game after game so bad in the first inning, and it's a real situation. It's a problem. I don't understand how you can't use your entire pitch selection like you do the rest of the game in the first inning. But again, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. It was just a rough year for him. He didn't pitch until July 30th, and even then he was still in bullpen mode, build-up mode, because they weren't letting him pitch a lot of innings. And the Mets basically expedited his return because they were strapped for starting pitching. It's been a rough year keeping all these pitchers healthy for the Mets. Now, he had given his team 3 straight solid starts before Sunday's underwhelming performance. Carrasco has pitched to a 5.73 ERA in 11 starts this year. So that's not going to win you any pennants there. So we really need Carlos to get it together going. But it looks like he was willing to come back. He built himself up. So it's a process, and we got to give him the benefit of that. 11 games don't make a season. But the game, once again, didn't mean anything because the Mets were eliminated from postseason contention a day earlier, and they watched the Brewers clinch the NL Central title. So look across the dugout on the other side, and you could see what it takes to win. The Brewers have some great pitching. But yesterday, the Brewers built from a 5-4 lead in the 6th inning using throwing errors from Jonathan Villar and Francisco Lindor and scoring 3 runs. Michael Conforto had a throwing error as part of the Mets' sloppy afternoon. Now, the Mets will be counting on Carrasco to stay healthy and rediscover success next season. In 2020, he posted 2.91 ERA in 12 starts for Cleveland. And by golly, that's the Carrasco we want and need. The Mets then acquired him in the trade that brought Lindor to the team. Carrasco, DeGrom, and Walker are the veteran Mets starting pitchers signed beyond this season. So he is going to be a big part of the Met equation next year. Stroman, Syndergaard, and Hill are impending free agents. I say if you can, go for all these 3 of them. Give Stroman a long-term deal, Syndergaard a qualifying offer, and Rich Hill a pack that will be economical because he's that type of guy you need in case starters do get hurt. But who knows what the starting rotation is going to be? Who knows who's going to be the general manager? Who knows who he wants on the team as far as pitching is concerned? But the Mets have to bet. The Mets baseball, the way Citi Field is meant to be a pitching organization, is meant to be pitching, and it's always been about the starting pitchers. So the Mets, no matter what happens, have to strive to get that top 3rd echelon starting rotation like they've always had and been famous for, and then let the other pieces fall into place. No one knows what the future is going to be, and that's why it's going to be fun to see what's going on this offseason, without a doubt. What else is going on in Metland? Well, J.D. Davis is done for the season. Who saw that coming? Remember in the beginning of the year was him and Brandon Nimmo, and the rest of the offense went AWOL? And I actually said, it's going to be great. They're going to have a designated hitter next year. J.D. Davis is the perfect man for that. But he was in the doghouse. Even when he got healthy in the second half of the year, they didn't want to play him at third. I guess he's that much of a defensive liability. But it just never worked out for J.D. with his injuries in the second half of the year. And I like J.D. I'm not sure what the thinking was with that, with not giving him the time that I think he deserved. But he was placed on the 10-day injury list with a left-hand sprain, and that's his 3rd trip to the IL. Davis has appeared in only 73 games and recently lost his starting position to Jonathan Villar. The IL move is retroactive Thursday, even conceivable, but unlikely Davis could return for Sunday's season finale in Atlanta. Now, Davis missed 2.5 months with ligament damage in his left hand, returning after the All-Star break as part of the third base mix. He also spent time in the IL in early April after he was drilled in the left hand by a Chase Anderson pitch. And Davis owns a 285, 384, 436 slash line with 5 homers and 23 RBIs. And Rojas even said that this injury may be somewhat related to the last injury he had. it seems to be in a similar spot that, the injury occurred 2 to 3 months ago. It's not a pain. It's not a shooting pain, but it's discomfort. And when you're a batter and you have discomfort, even the littlest discomfort can affect your swing. So it looks like that's the reason why they're shutting down J.D. Davis. Now, the arbitration-eligible Davis is among the players on which the Mets will have to decide for 2022. Team officials sought a third base upgrade last winter and again at the trade deadline. And it's also possible the Mets could keep Davis as a stopgap until prospects Mark Vientos and Brett Beatty are deemed ready. But the Mets could also look to re-sign Villar with the same idea. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with JD, for sure. What's going to happen with Noah Syndergaard? Well, let's take baby steps. His next step still hasn't been settled. So we don't even know what's going on in the coming week. But it's possible the right-hander will rejoin the roster before Tuesday's doubleheader against the Marlins. Syndergaard has appeared in 2 games for AAA Syracuse as the opener in his latest rehab assignment from Tommy John surgery. And Wednesday will mark the 2-year anniversary of his last major league appearances. Yes, with COVID and everything else, it's been 2 years now since we've seen Noah on the mound. Hard to believe. Now, who else was activated? We're talking about activating Noah. Well, guess who was activated? Sean Reed Foley. I like that guy. I really do. He was activated from the 60-day injury list to give the Mets a multiple inning reliever. The right-hander who arrived from Toronto as part of the trade for Steven Matz has been sidelined since July 4th with right elbow inflammation. To clear space on the 40-man roster, Albert Amora Jr. was designated for assignment. And Amora he never got on track offensively. It was pitiful. He appeared in 47 games for the Mets, and I don't even want to read these numbers, but we have to because that's what we're here to report everything Mets. He batted 115 with a 148 on-base percentage and a 321 slugging percentage. I think Jacob deGrom had a better year offensively, and I'm not even making that up as a joke. It's the truth. So who is pitching this week against the Marlins? Well, Marcus Stroman and Trevor Williams in succession are the Mets' scheduled starter pitch for Tuesday against Miami. And then Taijuan Walker and Tyler McGill are scheduled for Wednesday and Thursday, respectively. So it should be fun. All those pitchers are fun and entertaining. I'm going Thursday, so I'll close out with McGill. And I still have high hopes for Tyler McGill. I think he's going to be a great pitcher for the Mets. He's a guy who can give us innings. He may not be the ace, and they brought him up a little prematurely. But he showed so much composure that he gets an A+, even though he faltered, and I think he pitched way too many innings than he should have this year. But for one of the circumstances, he did a great job. Now, of course, one of the major questions that's going to be, I asked in Metland, is should the Mets bring Luis Rojas back as manager for 22? And let's face it, it's a complex situation. When a team underperforms for 2 seasons in a row, the manager getting fired is often one of the results of that underperformance, whether that outcome is fair or not. Sometimes a manager loses the clubhouse. Sometimes a manager is negative for a team and an easy scapegoat for poor performance. But you know what? When it comes to Louis, none of those things are true. And that's what makes the decision surrounding his future so difficult. On one hand, the optics of retaining Rojas on the heels of the Mets' collapse from being in first place for most of the season to being eliminated from playoff contention with over a week to go in the season would be difficult. On the other hand, if the Mets view Rojas as the right guy to manage the team, any concern about optics should be waved away. So what should the Mets do? Well, why does it make sense for Rojas? We're going to cover both sides of the plate here. Why does it make sense for Rojas to go? Well, for most of his tenure, Rojas' in-game move had been solid, and his reasoning for those moves after the fact has usually been well thought out. Early in September, though, before the Mets were left to play out the string, Rojas made lots of moves that were baffling in the moment, with his post-game reasoning following those moves making little sense. One example was not walking Miami Marlins outfielder Brian De La Cruz on September 8th and letting him beat the Mets on a walk-off hit with light-hitting Lewin Diaz on deck. There were also a string of poor decisions that put the Mets in position to fail during a loss to the St. Louis Cardinals on September 14th. At times down the stretch, it seemed as if Rojas was managing a bit scared, but it's also fair to ask just how much of the in-game indecisions are on him. In other words, Is Rojas getting this information to make these moves based on analytics? In today's game, you never know. And the Mets are really, especially since Cohen took over, investing a lot in analytics. So when it comes to usage, especially of pitchers, how much is based off things like health and performance and what the staff is actually recommending, and how much is it with certain players not being comfortable with heavier workloads? We'll just never know. And Rojas keeps it all on the lid. He's never lost his composure. So for that, I give him credit. But beyond the in-game issues, no matter how much of it falls on Rojas, the Mets could be better. And there's a possibility that our front office is likely to be structural on someone new, regardless of how well Rojas may fit. And I think that's going to be the case. I think when you bring in new front office personnel to run the organization, the manager is probably going to be a victim. Now, the expectation is the Mets will find a new president of baseball operations this offseason, with current president Sandy Alderson taking on more of a business role. But Alderson is expected to be involved in the hiring process of the new head of baseball ops. So we may see someone who actually thinks along the lines of Sandy Alderson. Now, the Mets may also have a new GM, with the future of once acting GM Zach Scott very much in the air, with an administration leave following an arrest on DUI charges. And it's fair to believe a new president of baseball operations, a new GM, might want to pick his or her own manager. Again, the results on the field during Rojas' tenure have been underwhelming, and that's an understatement. But how much of that could fall on him? We don't know. So, which leads us to our next point. Why would it make sense for Rojas to stay? Well, the in-game moves get the headlines, but they are just a very small sliver of what a modern manager does. When it comes to being a strong modern manager, Rojas basically checks off the box in almost all the categories. So we're in a conundrum here. He's been a steady daily presence in the face of the Mets in front of reporters every day during the season, and he's held himself well. He's been communicative with his players, kept a calm demeanor in the dugout, but also unafraid to get heated when it comes to the defense of his players. So he has their back without a doubt. And that has always provided detailed reasoning for the decision he makes. Now, it should also be noted that had the Mets not suffered an outrageous amount of injuries earlier this season, they might have pulled away in the NL East. They didn't, and that's not a reflection on Rojas. Rojas should not get a bet pass for the way the team performed down the stretch. But he also shouldn't shoulder, and that's a tongue twister. So I think I got it right the first time. How about that? Yeah, give myself a hand. But he shouldn't shoulder all of the blame. Through it all, Rojas' rapport with the players has remained strong. There are some who will say that the Mets have struggled this season to put any kind of consistency together offensively, have looked lethargic at times, or look like they have given up. To that, I say that the teams that can't hit often look like they're going through the motions. It's hard to look energized when you can't score runs, and that's the bottom line. You can't score, you're not going to win. A true sign of a team going through the motions would be constant mental mistakes, poor defense, giving up at-bats, and a lack of hustle. But none of those things match what we saw on the field from the 2021 Mets. They simply don't execute enough. Over the last two seasons, Rojas, who became manager after working nearly a decade in the Mets minor league system, has been a bright spot. So in an offseason where there'll likely be a front office makeover and where there could be lots of roster turnover, should the Mets find a new manager? Like I said, there's a clear argument that they should, but there's a clear argument that Rojas could very well be part of the Mets' future building. I mean, this is only year one in the Cohen phase. Let's not make it sound like we were supposed to win a pennant. I don't even think Cohen was expecting that. I think Cohen had like a 2 to 3 year plan where during that time we have to become serious contenders. So like it or not, the age of the taskmaster manager is over. No team is going to hire someone who they don't think can have good relationship with the players. And that's what Rojas has. And no team is going to hire someone who will be unwilling to work in a collaborative way with the analytics team in the front office. Now, with Rojas, the Mets have a modern manager who is familiar with the organization, has represented the team well, and who has, just a few months ago, was one of the well-thought-of managers in baseball. You don't throw all that away unless you think the next guy is a can't miss. And the next guy is never a can't miss. So unless it's someone who's considered one of the best managers in baseball, well, I think the Mets may be very well be better off keeping Rojas. Don't shoot me, but if he can work with the new upper management that comes in, give him one more year. But if you get someone who's lights out, one of the best managers in baseball, then maybe you do have to make that move. That's just my opinion, and I'm sticking with it. Now, what else is going on? Well, we got birthdays to celebrate, as we always do. I think there's only been one day since I've been doing these podcasts where a Met didn't have a birthday. So, yes, the Met organization has been around that long already that we celebrate Met birthdays every day, and this is no exception. First birthday we're going to celebrate is Don Schulze. Who remembers Don? Come on, who? I know there's got to be one of you guys that do. He was born in 1962, and he pitched for us in 1987 for 5 games, 21.2 innings with a 6.23 ERA. We got him in exchange for Ricky Nelson. Yes, Ricky Nelson. Wasn't he a traveling man and the Nelson brothers and all that? Garden Party? No, not that Nelson. But we did trade him for Ricky Nelson. Happy birthday to Jason Phillips, the ultimate backup. Actually, he got a lot of playing time before we got Piazza. And no, he is not related to me, but his full name is Jason Lloyd Phillips, and he spells his name Phillips with 2 L's, just like I do. And today, he turns an historic 45 years old. So happy birthday to Jason. All told, he played 264 games with 791 at-bats with the Mets, 19 homers, and 95 ribbies. And he's a good player, good man who filled the bill when he had to. Happy birthday to John Rauch, the big man. I think he still may be on record as the biggest, tallest Met of all time at 6'11", 230 pounds, and he wore number 60. He was with us for 73 games in 2012. Got 4 saves. He was the guy that, got the batters out when he had to. Short-term reliever. We only had him for the 1 year. And then we signed him as a free agent in 2011. And then he went and signed with the Marlins to pitch for them in the 2013 season. Happy birthday to John Lennon, Washington International fame. He was with us for 5 games at the tail end of the year, if you remember. 5 games, 4 innings pitched, ERA of 15.75. So maybe that's why you don't remember John Lennon. Only you know. And happy birthday to one of the fan favorites this year, Louis Guillorme. Filled the bill when he had to. So far this year, 65 games, 125 at-bats, 272 batting average. Be interesting to see if Louis is around next year. But he is a good team player, and I guess he does what he does to actually stick around with the ball club. So happy birthday to Louis Guillorme. And now what we're gonna do, what we like to do all the time, is put our time travel hats on and go to a day in Met history. Who is ready to do so? I am. Are you? Okay, I've zeroed in the year 2000, September 27th, 2000. Now, this is the day the Mets clinch a wild card berth. And on this day in Met history, the Mets clinched at least a tie for their second wild card berth. Bobby Valentine's Mets would win their 90th game of the season. They're now 90-68, getting to the postseason for the second straight year. It was the only time in team history the team went to the postseason in consecutive seasons. Fittingly, the Mets hosted their biggest rival this era, Bobby Cox's Atlanta Braves, who were 94-64, and Cox sent Kevin Millwood 10-12 to the Hill to face the Mets' Rick Reed in front of 48,858 wild and crazy Met fans. Now, the Brave lineup for that day looked like this. Playing shortstop, leading off, Rafael Furcal. Batting second, Andrew Jones. Batting third, another Jones, but they're not related, Chipper Jones. Batting third and playing third, Andres Galarraga. First base, batting fourth, Bobby Bonilla. Left field, batting fifth, Javi Lopez. Catcher, batting sixth, Reggie Sanders. Batting seventh, playing right field, Keith Lockhart. Batting eighth, playing second base, and Kevin Millwood pitching. For our beloved Metropolitans on this date in 2000, we had Timo Perez leading off, playing left field, Derek Bill in right field, batting second, Edgardo Alfonso batting third, playing second base, Mike Piazza catching, batting fourth, Robin Ventura, third base, batting fifth, Todd Zeile batting 6th, playing first base. Jay Payton batting 7th, playing center. Mike Bordick, shortstop, batting 8th, and Rick Reed pitching, batting 9th. Now, in the first inning, Braves' Andrew Jones hit a solo homer, putting Atlanta on the board first. Reed would give up a hit in each of the next 3 innings, but then shut down Atlanta through the next 4 innings. He would pitch 8 innings, allowing the 1 run on 4 hits with just 1 walk while fanning 7 Braves. Now, Reed was Mr. Steady for the Mets back in 2000. He's one of the steadiest pitchers of that era, and he won his 11th game, finishing the year at 11-5. Now, in the 4th inning, Timo Perez walked, and then Millwood helped out the Mets, walking 3 batters, including Todd Zeile, bringing in the Mets' first run. In the 5th, Timo Perez tripled with 2 outs. Darrell Hamilton pinch hit for Derek Bell and singled in Perez. Edgardo Alfonso then blasted a 2-run homer, his 25th of the year. It was 4-1 Mets, and the fans went wild. In the 6th inning, Robin Ventura singled, advanced to second, and scored on Jay Payton's base hit. In the 7th, with Atlanta's Scott Kamenicki on the mound, Hamilton walked and Alfonso singled. Robin Ventura then doubled, bringing in his 82nd RBI of the year. Now, in the 9th inning, the man who always had us on the edge of our seats, Mr. Armando Benitez, who never made anything easy, gave up a homer to Andres Galarraga and a single to Wale Joyner, but struck out the other 3 batters, including our beloved Bobby Bonilla, to a chorus of Shays boos to end the game. Booing, of course, Bobby Bo. The Mets celebrated, and the Mets cheered on their club. So those were good times. Celebrate. And you know what? Tomorrow, we're going to take this even deeper and talk about the night the Mets actually won the division. What the hell am I going to say? Oh my God. It's Monday. When they actually secured their wild card spot and didn't have to play a tie-breaking game. That's what I meant to say. Thank you, America. Thank you for being patient with me. What else happened on this day in Met history? I'm going to tell you. On this date in 1983, one of our fan favorites, Mookie Wilson, becomes the Mets' all-time career stolen base leader when he swiped second base in the 5th inning of a 4-3 win against the Pirates at Three Rivers Stadium. The New York center fielder will add to the franchise-breaking total of 140 in the same frame when he takes third base on the front end of a double steal with Darryl Strawberry. And let's go back to 1989. After he grounds out to second base to end the Mets' disappointing season, and if you're going to end the season, why not do it this way? Gregg Jeffries charges the mound and wrestles Philly reliever Roger McDowell to the ground. The fight, which sparks a season-ending bench-clearing brawl. How often do you see that season end with a bench-clearing brawl? Well, when you got Gregg Jeffries, anything's possible. And some say he was ignited by a Phillies reliever when he said something to his former New York teammate who was running to first, but the rookie infielder would claim his anger was caused by a brushback pitch thrown a few days earlier by the Philadelphia pitcher. Now, this was a fun day in 2012, and I happened to be at that game. It was a weekday game when R.A. Dickey went on the mound to attempt to win his 20th game. He did get it. It was a 6-5 victory over Pittsburgh at Citi Field. Dickey became the first Met hurler in 22 years to win 20 games. Wow, long time there. 37-year-old knuckleballer is the 6th pitcher in the 50-year history of the franchise to reach the milestone, along with Tom Seaver in 69, 71, 72, and 75, Jerry Koosman in 76, David Cohn in 88, and Frankie Sweet Music Viola in 1988. So those are some of the things that happened on this day. And what's going on? The greatest New York Mets baseball group there is, New York Mets Way of Life. New York Mets Baseball Way of Life, which, by the way, if you're not a member and you listen to this podcast, please do subscribe. We're on Facebook, so if you're a Facebook member, just put in a request to join, and we'd love to have you aboard. What else? If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. Then you'll get all the updates. We do Baseball Way of Life stuff, New York Mets Way of Life stuff, and during the off season, we'll be talking about other sports. It's just going to be fun. So subscribe to that. If you ever need to reach me, I'm at philstan41@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you. So what do we discuss in the group? Well, we discussed that the Mets now have 82 losses, guaranteeing their 10th losing season in the last 13 years. When you think about it, it hasn't been pretty, has it? Prior to this current stretch, the Mets have never had more than 8 losing seasons in any 13-game span. Who knew it was this bad? And even Sam Giordano says terrible. And Keith Hernandez summed it up best over the weekend and goes, "This is how second division teams play. I'm not going to put lipstick on a pig." At least Keith is being honest. Well, let's be honest, Aaron Loup is having quite a year. He dropped his ERA to 0.97, which is pretty darn close to the per can cost in a 12-pack of Busch Light, his favorite beverage. Now, how about this one to rattle your brain? Imagine spending 90 days in first place and being 10 games out of first week, a week to go in the season. Well, that's where the Mets are. Sad, but true. And then I asked, should the Mets consider Noah Syndergaard as a relief pitcher in the future? 100% of you said, no way, Jose. But we would love to see Noah back in some capacity, wouldn't we? Well, those are some of the cool things that we've been talking about in the group. So hopefully you're on board and participating, because we'd love to have you in the group. And subscribe to the YouTube cast, and please subscribe to the podcast. You'll be ordered every time one is uploaded, and you'll have privy to the library of all of them. So please do join. And now, as always, it's time for our Met Trivia and Jeopardy questions of the day. Who is ready? Get out your pen, write down your answers, get ready to lock them in. Here's today's trivia question. Which Mets center fielder was both an All-Star and Comeback Player of the Year as a member of the Cubs in 1970? Lock in your answer there. And now we'll skip over to the Jeopardy one. Was 24 years old when he broke into the big leagues on June 10th, 1966 with the New York Mets. Most widely known as one of the few pitchers to deliver shutout in his first major league game in a match against the Cincinnati Reds on June 10th, 1966. Let me get a sip of my coffee here. Give you a few seconds to figure these out. You write them in, you lock them in, and we'll be ready to reveal the answers. Okay, here we go. Who's ready? Today's trivia question again. Which Mets center fielder was an All-Star with the Mets and a Comeback Player of the Year as a member of the Cubs in 1970? The correct answer is Jim Hickman. And congrats to our good friend and Met historian, Harvey Porras, on being the first to get that one right. Good job as always, Harvey. And then the Jeopardy question was, the two clues I should say were, was 24 years old when he broke into the big leagues on June 10th, 1966 with the New York Mets. Most widely known as one of the few pitchers to deliver shutout in his first major league game in a match against the Cincinnati Reds on June 10th, 1966. Well, the correct response to this one is, who is Dick Rustick? So congrats to one hell of a great Met fan, John Tierney, and he's popping in on more and more of these questions, providing the correct answer. So good job, John. And he was the first to submit the correct answer. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. No game to report on tomorrow, but we'll be back with more coverage tomorrow, as always. Whether you're watching on YouTube, the group site, or the podcast, listening in on the podcast, tune in tomorrow. We'll be back with some more, as Chuck Barrett would say, good stuff. Enjoy the day. Let's get ready for the Marlins series. It's the last week. Let's make the best of it. Let's have some fun with this. And let's go Mets. And again, thank you so much for your support and for watching, guys. Really, really means a lot to me. Take care, and let's go Mets.